you! Hi, I'm Michael Giblin from violinexcerpts.com, which, if you haven't checked it out yet, is an online resource dedicated to helping violinists prepare for orchestral auditions. And in this video today, I wanted to share with you all the markings we use in an orchestral setting to quickly make notes in the music, either to tell what the conductor is doing or to make adjustments as requested. And this is important for three reasons. The first reason is for speed, because oftentimes we'll just be running through something in orchestra and you don't have time to write an elaborate note to yourself. All you have time for is to make a quick slash in the music because you want to get back to playing as fast as possible. The second reason is to be professional. And if a simple slash or squiggle or arrow could mean the difference between making a mistake and not, then it's worth doing it. The third reason is to be courteous, both primarily to your stand partner, who also has to read off the music. And so you want to keep the music legible and not for them to get frustrated at you because they can't read the music anymore because you've scribbled all over it. But also to the librarian, because they often have to erase the parts after we're done with them and return them if it's a rental part. So we want to keep them happy too. So these are the reasons. Let's get into it. So the first category of markings we're going to discuss are the ones related to tempo and rhythm. My favorite, to begin, is the squiggle. We use this whenever the time is not steady, and you're not quite sure if the conductor is slowing down or taking time. It just means something is happening, so look up. All you do is you write a nice little wavy line above the notes. It should tell you that you need to look up. Another option you can simply do is to actually draw eyeglasses into your part. This isn't as common in a professional setting. It's a little bit more of youth orchestra or college orchestra kind of thing, but it's still highly effective, and if it'll get you to look up, by all means, that's the point. So I like to simply just draw some eyeglasses. I prefer the straight arms, but as long as it doesn't look like a bra, I think you're okay. That's eyeglasses, and again, it just means look up because something is happening. A great thing to do when we have a tricky rhythm but a steady tempo is to slash out the beats. And what that means is you go through and you put these kind of diagonal lines above the notes to show where the beats fall. And it can be the difference between playing in a hole or playing at the correct time. Did you actually know in Finnish there's a word for the person that plays in the hole? It's brilliant. And this is something that you also see in like pops music or kind of jazzy or pop notation where there's a lot of tricky rhythms, kind of big band stuff. It's a great thing to do in that situation. Another time when it's a good idea to slash out the beats is when the conductor is giving you the instructions of what his conducting pattern is going to be. And sometimes I'm a little dyslexic with numbers, and so when he says something like, I'm going to be in 2 for 3 measures, and then I'm going to be in 4 at 6 measures before number 3, often it takes me too long to process exactly what he said. So instead of writing out, like in 2 in this measure and then writing in 4 in this measure, which kind of takes a little bit too long for me, often what I'll do is just slash out the beats when he's in 4, and then when he's in 2, I'll just write, a big 2 slashes that kind of tell the same thing as writing out, in 2 or in 4. I only do this basically up to 4. If he's in 6, I'll write out in 6. If he's in 8, I'll write out he's in 8. But slashing can be helpful for anything up to about 4. All right. Another great tool you can use that is similar to slashes is when you have a compound meter and changing meters too in addition to that. And the conductor will give you instructions that says, he'll often say something like, I'm in 2 plus 3 in this measure, and then 2 plus 2 plus 3 in the next measure. And so what I like to do is use a slash for any time that there's a 2, and use the triangle whenever there's a 3. So if 2 plus 3 would be a slash and a triangle. 7a, if he said you were in 2 plus 2 plus 3, you do a slash and a triangle, etc., etc. And for me, the slashes and triangles are a lot quicker to read than the actual numbers. So that's what I prefer. Other people may disagree. Either one is fine, but it can really help mean the difference when you have these changing and difficult meters. And the last one I'm going to share with you pertains to the most important time to slash beats, and that is at the very beginning of the piece. Often the conductor will say, I will give you 2 beats or 2 prep beats to begin, and then you start playing. This is can be tricky especially if there are pickups to the part. In this example from the Schumann Overture Scherzo and Finale, the last movement has these pickups in a 6/8 measure, and it can be confusing if the conductor is in 1 or if he's going to be in 2. So if the conductor says he's going to be 2, you simply go ahead and slash 2 beats right before the piece, so you know for sure the conductor is going to give 1, 2, and then you're off. I've actually been in a situation where we got off on the wrong foot because half the orchestra thought he was only giving 1 prep beat and the other half thought he was giving 2 prep beats, and it was obviously a disaster, and we had to start over in the concert, and it was very embarrassing. So that's a simple thing that you can do to make sure that you get off on the right foot. The second category of markings we're going to discuss now is related to dynamics. And it's no accident that we went in that order, because the rule for orchestral playing is first rhythm, dynamics, and then notes, because the right note played at the wrong time is still a wrong note. And also, if you happen to play the right note at the right time, but play it in the wrong dynamic, you're going to stick out, and it's going to be very embarrassing. So hopefully these markings will be helpful to you. The first one that I want to discuss is when the conductor says, or your section leader says, this is a subito piano or a subito forte. Well, how we mark these is by drawing a bracket around the dynamic that's printed. And it's kind of like if you were trucking along, you'd hit the wall, and that means all of a sudden you'd drop in dynamic, or it'd be a sudden change. It's the opposite of if there was a crescendo or a decrescendo. It's just an immediate change. And that's how we mark it. Another marking that is similar to the subito marking is when you have a soli passage, or the conductor specifically asks you to bring out a line because it's important. And we do this in the music by writing a bracket above the passage, above the notes that you want to bring out. It's kind of independent of a specific dynamic marking. It's just kind of relative to whatever else is going on, that you want to bring out this line. It's kind of like highlighting the part to let you know that, hey, yeah, this is important. So that's a bracket. A marking that string players use a lot is the symbol to put your mute on or to take the mute off. And we do this because often the instructions in the music are not in a place that makes sense. In this example from La Mer, we just have finished playing this line, and then there's like 20 measures of rest, and then right when you come back in, you see that they've written sordines here. Well, it's not really helpful, because by the time you see that, it'll be too late. So what we do is we just draw in the mute symbol at the end of the line, right when we finish playing, so that before you put your instrument down, you can put your mute on, and that you'll be ready to go when it's time to start playing again. Similarly, to the symbol to take the mute off is that upside down. It sort of looks like an M and sort of looks like a W to take it off. The next category I'm going to talk about is related to corrections and clarifications and any helpful reminders that you need to help yourself play the best that you can. The first one is fingerings, and the rule is that the outside player writes their fingerings above the line and the inside person writes their fingerings below the line. So in this instance, if I was the outside player, I'd write it up here, and if I was the inside player, I write it down here. And a good kind of rule of thumb is only write in your part the markings that you absolutely need. And it's better to try to keep things to a minimum where it's possible, because we don't want to clutter up the part and we don't want to make it illegible for your stand partner. All right. A marking that you're definitely going to need to know if you play any Pops concerts is the marking for when there are cuts. And we use this because inevitably there'll be some giant medley of like Star Wars music and nobody wants to hear the Princess Leia theme. So we're just going to jump to the ending credits music. So what you're going to do is you write the words cut to and then whatever measure. And then draw sort of this vertical line and sort of these diagonal lines, and then just one sort of squiggly line to the next part where you've done that. This is where, don't like scribble out the part vigorously, because in the final rehearsal they might change their mind and say, actually, we do want to hear the Princess Leia theme. And then you're going to have to, lose your entire eraser erasing all these scribbles. So just one marking is usually all you need, and you'll figure it out. And you'll remember, oh yeah, we don't play the Princess Leia theme. So that's how you mark a cut. Markings that I like to use when there are notes that I'm not supposed to play are parentheses. And these kind of just tell me, hey, don't play these notes. A lot of times what can happen is you're reading along and you turn the page, and if there's a solo at the top of the page, you might miss it and start playing it. So what I will often do is go ahead and draw in parentheses and to tell myself when there's a solo, okay, don't play these measures, and then I can see where the tutti is, because a lot of times these printed words that are either soli or tutti are kind of small and you might miss it. So the parentheses help me do that. In a similar vein, if there's a tacit where the whole section, of course, is not supposed to play, I also will draw in parentheses, which means the same things. Parentheses mean that the time is still beating, but we just don't play the notes that are inside the parentheses. Like, they're not cut. You're just not supposed to play there. Okay? Some useful markings that you can use to help you play the correct notes are the symbols for a half step and whole step. And these are useful if you've got a really difficult key signature with a lot of sharps or flats, or one that has a lot of accidentals. Or if there's just notes that are really high, oftentimes I'll mark these in. The symbol for a half step, it looks like this. It's just a sort of like a rooftop accent between two notes, and it tells you that these notes are close together. You can also use these on two different strings if it's like a sixth on a violin to tell you that your fingers are close together. The symbol for a whole step has a gap in it, and it looks like this. It's sort of like a down bow, but make sure you make it wider than the down bow symbol. And use these sparingly, because they can kind of become too much information on the page. So use your discretion when using that one. When I'm in a situation where there are a lot of rests and there aren't good cues written in the part, something I like to do is to write in the entrances of instruments to help me, make sure that I'm in the right place. Because a lot of times if I see that there are 50 measures of rest, I'll space out and start thinking about what I had for breakfast, or what I'm going to eat for dinner, or that funny cat gif that I saw on YouTube. And so, so something that will really help me kind of snap me out of it is to see, oh, this is when the trombone enters. And so I'll write in the kind of the abbreviation for trombone in this measure. And so that'll help me kind of make sure that I come in at the right time. When you're sitting on the inside of the stand and it's your responsibility to turn the page, there are a couple of markings that are helpful and courteous to do to make sure that you either get the page turned in time, or to tell you to wait to turn it because there might be a silence coming up. So we'll just go through a couple of these markings that if you're on the inside and turning pages, you would need to know. The first one and most obvious one is VS, and this is Italian for volte subito, or to you it just means turn the page really quickly. And more often than not, it means you need to stop playing early in order to turn the page on time. After you've turned the page, either if you've had a couple rests at the bottom of the page, what's helpful is to write how many rests there were, so that you know how to keep counting, and so you write them at the top of the page. So you've turned the page, and then you can't remember, oh wait, were there 4 measures or 5 measures? So you write that number in at the top of the page. That's a really helpful thing to do. The other instructions that you might want to write at the bottom is that there's time. And so if there's notes all the way to the end of the line, you can just write the word time. And that means you can play all the notes, take your time, turn the page, you'll be fine. The other thing that sometimes you might want to do is write the word wait, that there's going to be silence or something, so you don't want to be the person that kind of scrapes the page across the stand, because that would make a lot of noise. So you just write in the word wait for the music to start playing again, and then turn the page. In a professional orchestra, there's often very little rehearsal time for the amount of music that you have to get through. Often, even for Pops concerts, it's just one run through and then perform it. So if there happens to be a problem or a question, something that I often do is just to put an X in the margin, just kind of like this. If there was a question or something was wrong, or also if there was a part that I need to practice some more, because we're going to probably keep reading, and when there's a break or intermission, I want to come back to it and find the line where there was a problem. And so this helps me quickly find the line if you have a whole stack of music to help you come back and find the problem area that you can correct, hopefully, during the break. If you're playing a big Strauss tone poem or any piece where there's a lot of divisi, something that's helpful to help you remember which line you're supposed to be playing is to put a slash in the margin next to the line that you're playing. If you and your stand partner are playing the same line, just put 2 slashes there. It should help you remember which line you're playing. If you and your stand partner are playing different lines, maybe you're playing the top line and your stand partner is playing the bottom line, you can do that. And if there's a situation where the outside player is not playing the upper line, you could you can take it to the next level and maybe write your initial. If you and your stand partner have the same initials, you could write your full name if you want. I mean, anything that will help you play the right line. If you want to have a sense of humor, and you could make up a code name. For instance, all through college, instead of writing my name, I was Cobra, and my stand partner was Panther. But that's not something I recommend doing in a professional setting. The last category of markings that I want to discuss are the special musical requests or stylistic requests that a conductor or your section leader could recommend. And the first one that I want to talk about is simply the breath mark. And it's simply just a comma that we write above the line. You can either have sort of an apostrophe look to it or just a simple curve like a comma. And it just means that there's a breath, like similar to as if you were singing and you took a breath and then sing the next note. The kind of more extreme version of that is the caesura. And if the conductor says, you put a caesura or there will be time there, we put these 2 slashes. Sometimes you call them train tracks when you're in early music. So this literally means that there's a hard stop, and that you also, if there is a silence after it, it kind of also means that you should freeze and not just finish playing it and put your instrument down and turn the page. There really should be like silence after the caesura. A request that you'll often get from your section leader is when they turn around and tell you that they want a certain passage all played on a certain string. For instance, if you're playing a lot of Mahler, there's a lot of stuff that is often that you have to write on the G string. Insert dirty joke here. Yes, I know. So to mark the G string, we often will use the Roman numerals, and G string would be 4. D string would be 3, etc., etc. And so we write the Roman numerals above the line, and you could also possibly write the letter name if you want, but sometimes that could be confusing if there was like a correction. Just so usually I stick with the Roman numerals to let you know which string you're supposed to be playing on. Sometimes if you're playing a pops concert, the parts are just not really prepared very well, and sometimes there'll be a lot of mistakes or just errors in them, and so you'll be asked to make a lot of corrections that should be pretty obvious or that should have already been in the part. I'll just we'll go through a couple of these right now, is if there's supposed to be a part that is an octave higher, of course we write 8 VA and sort of these dashed lines for as long as it's supposed to be an octave higher. If it's an octave lower, we write 8 VB and then the same sort of dashes. And then if there's if there's a mistake where an 8 VA symbol has gone on too far, we can cross that out and write loco, like crazy. But actually it's not crazy because then you get to just play the notes where they're printed. Some other things that you might have to change or make notes are for a section that is ponticello, which is, again, on the bridge. The abbreviation rewrite is just pont, P-O-N-T, and that means that you're supposed to play kind of really close to the bridge and get that kind of scratchy sound. The opposite of when that ends is you want to write natural. That's just N-A-T and period. And that just means kind of natural, or normale is another abbreviation that I use sometimes. If there was something that was tremolo, for instance, and then we want to change it to just normal. What's the opposite of tremolo? It's normale. So you can just write N-O-R-M, and that's normale, or normal. Okay. Some other requests that you might get from either a conductor or a section leader, a popular one is non-vibrato. And instead of taking the time to write out non-vibrato, just write NV, and then you should recognize that stands for non-vibrato. Some more requests that you might get from a conductor or a section leader are regarding what bow strokes you're supposed to be making. If a passage is on the string, there's not really a good abbreviation for these ones. I just write on if it's supposed to be on. If it's a off or kind of a brushy stroke, as is often the answer when you ask what kind of stroke is this? Oh, it's brushy. Just write off. It's a lot shorter than writing brush, and it gets the point across. Two other markings that might be helpful reminders to you are in relation to where in the bow you are playing, and these might not be something that anyone tells you to do, that you might just have to write these in yourself, is if the section leader is playing at the tip or at the frog and it seems kind of unintuitive or not where you would normally think it would be played, I would go ahead and write in tip into the music, or also frog. Those are often helpful reminders to make sure you look uniform with your section and with your section leader. Another marking that might come up is if you have a long section of pizzicato, your section leader might decide to put the bows down, in which case at the top you'd write, bows down. And that should let you know, okay, yeah, put your bow on your lap. And then also when it's time to pick it up, you can just write up. You don't have to write bows up. I mean, I think you'll understand that you're talking about your bow. I would think so. All right. Well, those are all the markings that I can think of. If you'd like a PDF of all these, you can find the information for that in the box below. I hope this has been helpful for you. Be well and practice well.